Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Rutt Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2013 dark comedy drama titled Blue Jasmine. Now, Blue Jasmine runs for 1 hour and 39 minutes long. It is directed by Woody Allen. It was written by Woody Allen. Woody Allen was also nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Written Script. It was produced by Letty Aronson, Stephen Tenenbaum, I should say, and Edward Wolfson. The cinematography was done by Javier Aguirre-Sarobi, and the editing was done by Alicia Lipsalter. And the stars of the movie are Kate Blanchett, Sally Hawkins. Kate Blanchett actually won an Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role. Sally Hopkins, she was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Performance in a Supporting Role. Rounding out the cast included Alec Baldwin, Peter Sarsgaard, Louis C.K., Andrew Dice Clay, Bobby Cannavale, and Michael Stuhlberg. What could I say about this movie? I gotta say, this is probably maybe one of the best Woody Allen directed movies that I have seen from him in quite a long, long time. I think the last really good Woody Allen movie that I had seen was perhaps maybe Bullets Over Broadway. That was probably the last great movie I've seen from him. So it was good to see him back. It was good to see him dishing out some interesting philosophical ways of humanity in all of its negative charm. Because as you all know in the history that I've seen Woody Allen movies, a lot of the stuff he has seems to border in the area of somewhat semi misanthropic. Even though maybe I might be misconstruing the things he says, maybe he thinks that, humanity is still good, but there's also a lot of negativity that comes with humanity. And I know that most people are often afraid to admit it. He's actually one of the very rare specimen where he's not afraid to come out and say that even though the human race is a beautiful thing, they still can sometimes suck. These are not my words, these are kind of more like his words in simple interpretations, or maybe something that seems that that's what comes out of what his train of thought is. I have different I have a different approach. Sometimes even I don't always think the human race is the kindest. But then I say to myself, I'm looking at a mirror, I'm looking at a video camera, and I'm just part of either the optimist will say I'm part of the solution. The pessimist will probably say, because I'm a human being, I'm part of the problem of what's going on in this world. I'm just a tiny little fragment. But anyhow, that's kind of always had been sort of like the train of thought that Woody Allen believes in what he also makes his audience want to believe in. So the story goes a little something like this. After divorcing her unfaithful and unreliable husband, Hal Francis, played by Alec Baldwin, Jasmine, played by Kate Blanchett, who was at one time a high society New York City gal, she decides to migrate to San Francisco to shack up with her not so glorious lifestyle adopted sister Ginger, played by Sally Hawkins. All the while, Jasmine tries to adapt to the working class society as she is without option in abandoning the high class comfort and luxury she lived by before her divorce which left her broke. She's not only broke, she's also kind of like friendless, and she's lost in this world. Almost kind of a bit of a lost in translation. The working class is absolutely foreign to her. But the thing of the matter is she embraces the fact of the working class being lower than her. I mean, it's obvious that she has to adapt to this working class lifestyle, but the thing of the matter is, she doesn't want to. And she'll put everybody who she thinks is below her down. She obviously disapproves of any boyfriend whom Ginger meets up with, putting them down, calling them losers, calling them underachievers. When she stops to fail to look at herself, that she's actually the number one underachiever. She thought that by marrying this rich, successful business guy like Hal, only to turn out that he was a scammer, a philanderer, and a crook. She eventually ended up having to have kind of like a reality check slapped right in her face. But the fact of the matter is, this slap on the face was only just left her broken. I mean, here we see her basically talking to herself, even though she looks like she's trying to strike conversations with people, only to discover that people are just not interested in hearing the things she says. She's selfish. She's self-absorbed. And she thought that, by marrying this rich, successful guy, that she didn't have to worry about anything else in life. Hey, I mean, at first you probably think that her migration from New York City to San Francisco, you get the impression that she's an empowered, independent woman who doesn't need anybody in life. But then we realize that's totally not the case. I mean, she thought that when she married Hal, that she never had to worry about having a job. She never really thought about the whole idea that her life would take a 180 turn for the worst. I mean, there's a lot of movies that are about rags to riches stories. Well, this movie is the complete opposite. This is a riches to rags story, which does not really often happen. You think that all stories in movies, whether it be romantic comedies, all have to necessarily fall into that refrigerator of Cinderella stories? Well, this movie is the complete opposite of a Cinderella story. She once went from a rich socialite to being flat broke, and she has to dwell in her sister's low-income apartment with 2 rowdy kids, and she doesn't like the choices of boyfriends that her sister brings home. One was a guy who went by the name of Augie, played by Andrew Dice Clay. And Andrew Dice Clay depended on this guy, Hal, because of the fact of the matter is that one day Augie had a lottery which won him over $200,000. And with that $200 invested, he was going to invest that money to Hal so that Hal could sort of like help him on his way develop his own contracting company. But lo and behold, because Hal is a fucking scammer and a fraud, he kind of lost faith in not only Hal, but Jasmine. Well, he never liked Jasmine to begin with because Jasmine constantly used to put him down by calling him a loser. And that it was actually all of Jasmine's fault that the relationship between Augie and Ginger had to end this way. So now with Augie out of the picture, Ginger is now stacking up with some mechanic by the name of Chili, played by Bobby Cannavale. Now, Bobby Cannavale is a guy who's a mechanic. Um, he's not making the millions of dollars like rich business guy Hal, but also at the same time, once again, just like Augie, Jasmine does not approve of Ginger's new hubby, Chili, being to the fact that he's not a rich, successful guy. He's just some lowly grease monkey working as a mechanic. And he comes home smelling like carbon dioxide. And he is the kind of guy who gets paid just for getting his hands dirty. I mean, this is all she does. She just constantly, surreptitiously puts everybody down because she's selfish and she's self absorbed. But there is something about her that I do like. She seems to come across. I mean, I do take a little bit of sympathy for her because of the fact that she was stuck in the middle of this, but instead of getting some kind of restitution, she ended up getting zilch. And you gotta take some pity for her. Even though I'm kind of like painting off a very grim, dark, cynical picture of her, there is still some light about her that you might find very, very interesting. Now, even though Woody Allen doesn't star in the movie, you could clearly tell that his idiosyncrasies do come alive, but not in the physical sense, but more in the metaphoric sense. So, although Woody Allen only directs and doesn't star here, his trademarks are carved out as he once again exhibits how reality takes a huge bite in the ass, as our future is not always written in stone, and that everything that was given to you can also be taken away from you. The humor and irony depicted here is truly multi layered as various issues are tacked on, and the feeling of angst plays a pivotal role in its entirety. Such issues like social status, financial tribulations, marital dishonesty, sibling conflicts, and redemption all contribute to the ongoing theme that life and pain are truly compatible. Now, unlike Allen's previous projects with intertwined subplots, Blue Jasmine focuses mostly on one subject and generally just one character about life taking a turn for the worse. Not every story has to have a all lived happily ever after. This movie has no happy ending. Cate Blanchett and Sally Hawkins' contrary lifestyles are the perfect foil as it contributes splendidly towards the angst theme that lingers on in the duration of the film and the world of Jasmine. Now, Jasmine, like I said, there's no happy ending in this story. The final scenes are, Jasmine wants to try to at least redeem herself with the people who she loves, but it seems like she doesn't seem to know how to love back. I mean, every time Ginger brings home a new beau, she turns them down. I mean, she tried everything she could to sabotage. I mean, she succeeded to at least sabotage the relationship between Augie and Ginger. And she was going to do everything she could to sabotage the relationship between Ginger and Chili. But, and she almost did. I mean, she tried to hook him up with some sound sound recording engineer played by Louis C.K. But then, and it looked like they were taking that, and it looked like she was getting her way. But unfortunately, Jasmine has not been doing her homework. Ginger eventually ends up realizing that the sound recording technician is a married man. So not only was she trying to sabotage Ginger, she was also trying to sabotage this poor guy's own marriage. And she does that throughout everything. She ruins people's friendships. She is what you would call somebody called a Betty Heartbreaker or a Mary Homewrecker. That's who she is. She's a Mary Homewrecker. She seems to have this kind of euphoria of wrecking people's lives. Even her own family, even her own son, who was supposed to go to university to become some kind of mathematician. But then after the divorce from her and Hal, which led to his incarceration, which led to his suicide, her son eventually drops out of college and is hiding out in California. And he was in and out of the law, and then he found himself a girlfriend who had put him back on the straight and narrow. And now he's working at a video store, or he's working at a music store. Yeah, that's it. He's working at a music store. And he kind of tells his mother off that I don't want you in my life anymore. Me and my girlfriend are doing fine, and we don't need you sabotaging our relationships. So just go back to where you came from. They don't want anything to do with her. He doesn't want anything to do with her. Nobody does. I mean, she tried to sabotage Ginger and Chile's relationship, but obviously she couldn't destroy that relationship. So then you see the once posh, clean, immaculate Jasmine now looking all disheveled with her Louis Vuittons and her rich, exquisite clothes that cost in the 15,000 range. Now she's just sitting on a park bench talking to herself. So although you could be angry at her during the duration of the movie, you also sometimes have to take a step back and realize that what she's gone through is still not a pleasant thing. When we're first acquainted to Jasmine, we see her in exquisite designer regalia and talking non-stop to a passenger during her flight from New York City to San Francisco, you get the impression that she is a person who has her life under control. But by the time she settles in her sister's not so elegant abode, reality starts to sink in. Obviously, that during her time in her marriage with Hal, she didn't hold a job herself because she felt she didn't need it. But now that she's in Ginger's home, she does make the effort to find work. She also does, try to make the effort to better herself. Number one, uh, she took a job once as a receptionist to a dentist, but that didn't really work out very well due to the fact that the dentist started to get a little flirty with her and she kind of pushed him away. And also, she wanted to sort of get into the fashion business, and she seems to be somewhat savvy and fascinated with fashion. But of course, to be a fashion designer, you also have to learn a little bit of computer skills. So, at a community college, she decides to enroll in some computer training classes since she's never really knew how to operate a computer. Not everybody in the world is computer savvy. Obviously, she wasn't. She was just more interested in shopping and spending. But now she has to have that reality check stamped to her forehead. So while she's trying to struggle to become part of the real world and not this fantasy world of swimming pools and Louis Vuittons, she she at least will give credit that she's making the effort, but she's still selfish and self-absorbed and not exactly a very likable individual. But I guess the events that have happened to her, you kind of have to feel a bit sorry. From Ginger's hyperactive kids to her blue collared, uncouth boyfriend, Chili, played by Bobby Cannavale, who Jasmine doesn't approve, Jasmine's luxurious lifestyle has totally become meaningless. Meaningless to the point where nobody wants anything to do with her. And that's kind of like how the movie ends. I don't know if that's what she wanted, but that's just how it ends. She is friendless. She really has nowhere to turn to. Nobody wants anything to do with her. Now, I don't know if she's going to spend the rest of her life homeless, but we can clearly see that the final scenes of the movie, all she's doing is just sitting on a park bench, talking, but nobody's paying attention to her. So we get glimpses of her once comfortable life with her scamming husband Hal, who was once a property developer. And it is actually, the flashbacks were told in very good detail, and it also contained a series of infidelity and questionable business ethics with Hal. The transformation from deluxe apartments and posh parties and exquisite jewelry to her current life working in a low income job is something that is just totally hard to swallow. But still, we side with her the whole way through her journey as she eventually resorts to pill popping, talking to herself, and sipping martinis while her life has taken a severe nosedive. At first, we thought maybe she was going to get her life back on track, that she was going to go back to her old ways again of being a socialite again when she eventually shows some uh, in when she shows some affection towards a single diplomat played by Peter Sarsgaard. I mean, hey, what could go wrong? I mean, the guy's rich. The guy is up there in a as a diplomat. uh, Sorry about that. And I thought that maybe she was going to go back to her resort to her old ways again by trying to get better acquainted with this diplomat. And of course, she lies to him about her being an exterior decorator, and she says all kinds of things that impresses him. And I think he wanted to assign her for a job to see if she could find some kind of ways to help improve. He's supposed to do some kind of legislative speech because he's, I think, trying to run for senator, and he wants campaign his campaign room to be, you know, elaborate. He puts his faith and trust in her, and of course she gladly obliges. And things were actually looking up to her pretty well. That is until the rich diplomat meets up with Augie down the street. And Augie has, of course, moved forward in life. He's now working, doing underground pipe work, and he actually now runs his own business, and he did it on his own merits. So good for him. But then he also exploits and leaks out every rumor, every lie that Jasmine has told. So then when the diplomat tries to get things straightened out from her, she pushes him aside, and eventually she dumps him because she knows she lied. I mean, I know he was gonna interrogate her and ask her all kinds of questions, but obviously she doesn't have the answers. So instead, she screams at him, tells him to pull over, and he he stops for her, and she walks the rest of the way. Sometimes I think she just does this to herself. You sometimes often wonder maybe she's got issues. I mean, I'm not actually laughing at her because of this. I mean, like I say, I take pity for her. Blanchett definitely trades in her vanity demeanor for utter pity. But Blanchett was able to pull it off splendidly as her angst-fueled, drenched armpits and her runny mascara. But she isn't alone in this movie, even though she is the focal character and she is the one who carries the heavy load throughout. I'm not going to say that it's not an ensemble film because it is. She's just the only one who seems to have the most developed character. But aside from that, Sally Hawkins, she was just as equally impressive as the ultra generous Ginger. Alan's theme focuses on perception and attitudes as Jasmine disapproves over the choices Ginger makes in life. So by the time Peter Sarsgaard's wealthy diplomatic character, I remember his name now, it's Dwight, enters the fray, it feels like they were truly made for each other, being that he's equally materialistic. It's ironic that when they first kiss, they're both wearing dark glasses. So the strive for your goals must definitely come in a price. And Alan ensures that he makes that statement clearly. I guess the lessons to be learned in this movie is, like Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Well, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. You could get a nice, sweet, creamy filling inside, or you could get a hard rock cashew. And I'm sure you would probably prefer the sweet, creamy filling. So Alan's presence is clearly heard, and we can metaphorically say that in his emotions, that he's blue as the sky, or that he's jabbing the heart of the human race in all of its vulnerabilities. And that's kind of like just what he does. And that's kind of like what kind of makes him such a unique director. I mean, he's been in the game for over 50 years. And he's done everything he can to give another human enlightenment story. And here, he truly delivers. And even though this movie came out in 2013, this movie is just as refreshing as a lot of his movies that he has directed over the years through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. He can still deliver. Just because he's over 80 doesn't mean that the guy has lost touch with reality. Reality is still within him. He still knows a lot about human psyche, and he does dish it to us. There's a lot of philosophy in this movie, and he brings it all in this 1 hour 39-minute movie. So for that, I give Blue Jasmine on a scale out of 10, I give Blue Jasmine a 9. So I guess this ends my rider review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. Just remember, be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I'm going to be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Carrat Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.